What is going on, guys? Welcome to The Reformed Reader, the channel where we review different forms of media through the lens of a Christian who is under the authority of the scriptures. My name is Josh, and today we're going to be doing a book review of Darth Maul Shadowhunter by Michael Reeves. Now, before we dive into this review, let's go over what is this book about. After years of waiting in the shadows, Darth Sidious is taking the first step in his master plan to bring the Republic to its knees. Key to his scheme are the Neimoidians of the Trade Federation. When one of his Neimoidian contacts disappears, Sidious does not need his force-honed instincts to sense betrayal. He orders his apprentice, Darth Maul, to hunt the traitor down. But he is too late. The secret has already passed into the hands of information broker Lorne Pabin, which places him right at the top of Darth Maul's hit list. Then, in the labyrinthine alleyways and sewers of Coruscant, capital city of the Republic, Lorne crosses paths with Darsha Asant, a Jedi Padawan on a mission to earn her knighthood. Now the future of the Republic depends on Darsha and Lorne, but how can an untried Jedi and an ordinary man, stranger to the powerful ways of the Force, hope to triumph over one of the deadliest killers in the galaxy? Alright guys, the way I normally structure my reviews is I go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good being the things about the book that I enjoyed, the bad being things that didn't work so well for me, and these are preferential things like characters that you're supposed to like that maybe I didn't, maybe the prose, setting, writing style, those kinds of things. But then I go over the ugly, which is what could be some sin that is steeped into the book that might hold a Christian back from picking this up. And I break that down into 5 categories. But before we get into that, let's go over the good. So what did I like about this book? I really enjoyed most of it. I loved the pacing. I loved that it's not a lengthy novel at all. You know, the font is pretty big. I think it took me maybe like 3 days, and I wasn't actively trying to finish it. I was just reading it when I felt like it, and it took me about 3 days to finish it up. It's not even 300 pages long, but it's an excellent book for anybody that grew up with the prequels. I say that because I know there's some animosity towards the prequels, maybe less so now because of Disney. Thanks a lot. There definitely seems to be a bit of hate going towards the prequels, and I would say that some of it's justified, but as somebody that grew up with the prequels, I absolutely loved Episode 1. I still remember going to the theater to see it. But most of all, I loved Darth Maul. I remember when the trailer came out to this movie and it showed him igniting both sides of his lightsaber. And we were just like, all of us, my brothers and I, we were just blown away and could not wait to see what kind of villain that we would encounter. And unfortunately, we did see a very quick end to Darth Maul. In my opinion, I wished that the prequel trilogy would have kept Darth Maul and he would have been sort of the Vader replacement. I understand why George Lucas didn't do that. He wanted to do something different to what he did with Darth Vader, but man, Darth Maul was such a cool character, and he got so little screen time. And so I just wanted more of his character. Now, I did another video on this channel of Darth Plagueis, which I will put somewhere right in here. And it talks a little more in depth about Darth Maul's origin story. And that's not what this is. So this book is set maybe a year, if even that much, before the events of Episode 1. So this is this is leading up to Episode 1. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the end of this book was sort of that bridge into The Phantom Menace. What I really liked about this book is it read kind of like a Jason Bourne story. It's like a constant chase movie. But the difference is that instead of following characters that are being chased, which we do, but your primary character, Darth Maul here, was the active pursuer. And so that was really cool to see. Also, we know, obviously, that Darth Maul wasn't going to be defeated because this is before the events of Episode 1. So we knew that he was going to survive. But again, in this book, like I mentioned in Darth Plagueis, where we get to see Darth Sidious's true vile and wicked nature, we get more of that with Darth Maul and Sidious here. So to see how completely corrupt Maul was by the dark side was really cool. It also really focused on his flaws as a character, his pride, which ultimately led to his demise. So I really appreciated that Michael Reeves really stuck to the nature of the character that we got in the prequels. Now, our other two main characters, Lorne Pavin and Darsha Asant, the Jedi Knight, they were interesting, but I don't really think that they were necessarily extremely memorable. I liked Lorne's character a lot more than Darsha. Darsha seemed very cookie cutter Jedi Knight. Nothing really stood out about her in my opinion, but Lorne was really cool, and his droid was awesome. And I do know that Lorne and his droid, I know they're featured in a few more novels, but their story was really, and their dynamic was really cool. The droid reminded me a lot of the droid in Rogue One. Yeah, got a pretty good kick out of him. There were some actual comedic moments that landed here. Overall, the characters, most of them were fine. Darth Maul by far is the coolest, and Lorne and his droid were really, really interesting. So the characters were pretty cool. The story was pretty cool. So the plot, the characters, the setting, we're on Coruscant the whole time. So it was cool to get to see the different layers of Coruscant, because most of the time we just see sort of the skyscraper part of Coruscant, and in episode 2 we saw a little bit of that sort of mid-tier level, but this really focused on not only the low level but then the subterranean level. So that was really neat. So the setting was really cool, and I appreciate that we stayed on Coruscant. I appreciate that there wasn't really a lot of filler, and that it was just like, here's the story, these people are being chased by Darth Maul and being pursued, and let's see if they make it out alive. And so that's what you get here. So I really enjoyed this for the most part. So that brings me to the bad. What were some things that I didn't care so much for? Like I mentioned in the setting, we do stay on Coruscant the whole time, which I did enjoy to an extent. It also kind of got monotonous, and I say this in a similar case with Dune. I just wish the setting would have changed up maybe a little bit, but because we were stuck on Coruscant the entire time, I think we were there the appropriate amount of time. What I mean by that is, if we were on Coruscant any longer in this book, it may have been more of a drawback for me, but just by the end of the book, I was kind of wore out of Coruscant. Also, if we're going to explore Coruscant, let's look at all the tiers and maybe not just the lower tiers, because this was predominantly the lower tiers. I would have loved to see them moving around in the different levels and hierarchies they're in. That would have made for a little more of a gripping read for me. Other than that, that was really about it. I really liked seeing Darth Maul's action scenes and how he was just unrelenting in his mission. Let me put it that way. So otherwise, I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot bad in this book. The pacing was perfect, by the way. The pacing was phenomenal. So that brings me to the ugly, and that is, what could be some sin that is steeped into this work that might hold a Christian back from reading it? And I break this down into 5 categories, and I rate them out of 10. So let's start with the first, which is violence and brutality. Now, violence and brutality, I gave it a 7. It's pretty high, but again, you kind of know that going into it. You're following Darth Maul. He's an assassin. The book is called Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, and that's exactly what you get. You get a Sith Lord hiding in the shadows that is hunting people down. That is his mission. And so anybody that gets in his path gets wiped out. And so that's what we get in this book. If you're not looking for that, this isn't the book for you. If you're looking for more of the love story between Padme and Anakin, that kind of stuff, you're not going to get it in this book. It is pretty intense with some of the violence. The level of violence and brutality distributed out by Darth Maul is completely unbiased and unsegregated. Anybody that gets in his way and stands between him and his mission becomes a new target. So that's why I gave violence and brutality such a high score. The next is sexually explicit content. I gave this a 1. Now, I would have loved to have given this a 0. There is just a passing reference to, while our main protagonists are being chased by Maul, that they run through a nightclub, and I'll just phrase it in that way. There's nothing descriptive explained, but the connotations there, you understand where our characters are running through. So just know that ahead of time. Otherwise, there's not really anything in here, and there shouldn't be. That leads me to language. Now, language I gave a 0. There's no language in here. There are no expletives. There is no blasphemy in this book, and there shouldn't be. It's Star Wars. Again, it's a Star Wars book. We shouldn't be getting explicit language or blasphemy in here. So that leads me into gratuitous inclusions. Now, gratuitous inclusions, I also gave a 0. There's no mention of diversity or inclusion for the sake of being diverse and inclusive because this is a Star Wars Legends novel. I do not read the new canon stuff that is owned by Disney. There shouldn't be any of that in here. We're reading about Star Wars. That's what we're here for. We're here to be pulled away from our world and transported into a galaxy far, far away. And so we don't need to be preached at or virtue signaled into social justice issues of today. And then this leads me to the last category, which is dark themes. Now, dark themes, I give like a 3. Now, what do I mean by dark themes here? I don't mean that there's anything spiritual in nature, but you are following the villain. Now, again, if you haven't seen my review of Darth Plagueis, it's very similar. You're really reading from the perspective most of the time from a Sith Lord or a Sith apprentice. And so you kind of know what you're getting into. So if you don't expect there to be anything mentioned that has any kind of dark theme around it whatsoever of murder, espionage, villainy, wickedness, those kinds of things, then you don't need to read about a Sith Lord. That's part of it. Now, my buddy Ted, he says that he likes reading stories where the good guy wins. I agree, but sometimes it's a nice change up when the good guy doesn't always win. And again, I mentioned Rogue One. At the end of Rogue One, the good guys don't really win. And this is kind of what you get here. I'm not trying to spoil it for you, but obviously Darth Maul isn't killed because he immediately jumps into the Phantom Menace. But he is the pursuer here. I mean, you are trying to read from the perspective of Darth Maul. So just know that going into it. So I'm not going to say that there are dark themes in the sense that you should have reservations about reading this, or that there's any kind of spiritual connotation to it, or that it's trying to promote any type of sin or wickedness in any way or shine a good light on it. It is not doing that at all, but there are a couple of dark themes in here in the sense that you are following a murderer. So if you're not looking for that, this may not be the book for you. So that leads me to this final question, which is, would I recommend this to a Christian? And the answer is absolutely I would. It does depend on who it is. I wouldn't necessarily want my son, who is 11, to pick this up right now. I do think he will really like this when he gets a little bit older. This is not written for children, but this is written for an adult that grew up with Star Wars that wants more of Darth Maul, wants more of his backstory, wants to read more about his adventures and missions, those types of things that Darth Sidious sent him out on. That's who this is for. So I absolutely would recommend this to any Christian that loves Star Wars and wants to dive a little bit deeper into that universe, in particular with a character that we didn't get enough of. So absolutely, I would recommend this to a Christian, and will and have and will continue to, because it's an excellent book. Overall, what did I think? I really like this book. I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10. It's probably somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8, because not everything worked for me, but I'll tell you what worked for me more than anything is that I love being able to pick up a book, especially a Star Wars book, sit down and read it, and have no reservations about having to put it down due to the content. So it was just a nice breath of fresh air. It sort of reignited that love for not only sci-fi, but Star Wars. And for a piece of work to be able to reignite that love of Star Wars that I once held so dearly, it just kind of got lit on fire when Disney purchased it. It was so great to get to be transported back to that story and that universe that I loved so much as a young man, and that meant a lot to me that I could escape to. And so it was great to be able to go back into that world and have that love of Star Wars reignited. So I think Michael Reeves did a wonderful job of doing that for me personally. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you. If you guys like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help me out. So if you guys would please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Make sure you click that notification bell down low so that way you know when I post new videos. I try to post every Sunday and Wednesday a full video, and then shorts throughout the week. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Leave me a comment down in the comment section below of which Star Wars book I should jump into next. I plan on doing a buddy read with some of my Christian brothers pretty soon, so that'll be coming before too long. Really looking forward to that one. But let me know some of these Star Wars books that I can jump into. I really like kind of the standalone approach, because I can just pick one up in between books and not have to dive into a 10-book series. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into more Star Wars books. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you on the next one.